Let's welcome in our next guest. You may or may not know him. And here he is. Ant Critchley. How are you, Ant? We're a bit funny on the screen there. How are you?
Good morning, Sonia. Are you okay?
I am grand, as you can hear, Ant. I don't hang around. Good. I don't mess around, right? So thank you so much for being here with us. And thank you to Gaynor and welcome. Gaynor's mum, Gaynor's 81-year-old mum who watches Wake Up. Thank you. We very, very much appreciate you. And Gaynor had suggested you. She said you've got an amazing life story, a soul journey to tell. And well, let's not really hang around because I've been watching your videos. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Breaking free from the matrix. You're not broken. You've been hijacked. These are like words that I say, Anne, right, a lot of the time. And I also want to talk to you about Saturn, which I've always considered the taskmaster. I mean, there's loads to talk to you about. But first of all, I want to talk a little bit about what brought you here. Now, according to Gaynor, you tried to keep your pub open in Lancashire during C19. Bear in mind, we're live streaming on YouTube. They still have ridiculous policies regarding C19. But what happened regarding your pub and C19?
Interestingly, Gaynor's mum used to come to my pub. So she was very rebellious and used to arrive. I used to have a Truth or Tuesday at the pub. We had people come in from miles and miles around. We signed for that pub, interesting, called the Crown / Corona. We signed for that pub the day they shut the pubs. So I wasn't there to have a successful business, and it came. I was fully aware of what they were doing from an early point, but we played the game initially. You know, if there's any kind of regret that I have, it's that I didn't go hard from the beginning. But we'd moved back to a village that we love. I have a young family, and I care for my partner who is disabled. So it was kind of, let's play the game. Because I didn't know how long this thing was going to last, to be honest with you. But when they started, well, obviously they started with the rule of 6, didn't they? And you had a table of 6, and all 6 meters apart, and all that nonsense. And I had a problem one afternoon where I had a table of 7, and I was getting punters coming to say, "Oh, table 7 on that table, 7 on that table."
My God.
And I was, my soul broke inside, and I was thinking, I'm not doing this. I cannot do this. So, granted as well, if you think that my missus is disabled, we've got 2 kids, we're a young family. I sat up with her one night and I said, "Lou, I'm sorry, but we're going to lose everything. I can't do this, and I'm not going to do it." And we did. We lost everything. But we had probably 8 months of an incredible journey where we became a hub, not just in Lancashire, but miles around. People coming from Scotland, all over the country, But unfortunately, when people travel, they don't drink. So there wasn't any money coming into the till.
Bless you.
So we lost everything. We lost our home. And I had a breakdown at the end of it as well, because it was a lot to carry, but we did an incredible job, and it's something I'm very proud of. But yeah, the breakdown was very important because that set me on my path. Yeah, but it set me on my path of I've always been a kind of person that's cared very deeply about people and humanity in whole. It always bothered me growing up. I could never understand why a bloodline family would have so much control and why they were potentially better than we are. So it's always affected me, that. And this breakdown, I found myself at a point where I was on the kitchen floor. I couldn't dress myself. I didn't want to do anything. In fact, it was the point where I'd had enough. I didn't want to be here anymore. But I had to make a decision, and I had a very strong intention. And that intention was to fix myself and then show people how to fix themselves as well. So that's where the Stellify journey really started back at that point, even though Stellify as a channel didn't launch till last March. But from 6 months of kind of going in my shadow, diving into the deep subconscious, recognizing why we are so conditioned, why we're put in fear so much. I had to look at all these aspects, why humanity is so disconnected to themselves. And interestingly, I don't, depending on who I'm being interviewed by, I don't talk woo-woo a lot of times because people get a bit put off by that. But I had a phone call from a gentleman when I had my breakdown, who had come from Inverness to the pub one day, and I don't remember him, but he rang me out of the blue, and the first words weren't hello or anything like that. It was, you need to remember who you are. And this is the problem with humanity right now, is that we do not remember who we are. We're so conditioned, we're so put into systems of fear and slavery that we forget our true essence. And that's where my passions lie in more than anything right now, is to help people come back to who they are. Because if a large percentage of population did the inner work and recognize actually they are incredibly powerful, beautiful souls, we're all just trying to get through life.
Yeah.
But if we recognize our true selves in our heart, this world is going to be a so much better place. The balance will return considerably. So I dive deep into various subjects, if you like, on my channel of control. Esoteric is something that's interested me from an early age as well. So I dive into that, not just the 3D political landscape that we find ourselves in.
And it's very interesting what you say about your breakdown. I had a breakdown at 30, and that I still consider to this day to be my saver. That was literally like the thing that saved me, because what it allowed me to do was detach from the old way that was not working for me. And essentially, as I say, the breakdown led to the breakthrough. And I think that happens for many, many people. But it's also that it's an immense spiritual moment as well, isn't it? And I really can relate to that whole idea of, you lying down, you're not sure you want to end it, but you are actually ending the old you, aren't you? And you can't, and it's really funny because the end of not every wake up, Monday and Friday's wake up, I always try to end on some kind of philosophical note at the end of the show. And today's is about releasing the old in order to be able to step into the new. And that is the reality. You had to stop that old way of being, but you were still showing this side of you, who you are now, by the way that you ran your pub. The fact that you had that, people coming together, meeting up to be able to talk truth to each other, all of that was really important. So that's all part of your journey. And do you kind of accept that now? As painful as that period was, do you see it as almost like the building blocks to enable you to move into the next stage of your life? Or do you still look back on it and go, that was a horrendous period of time, I can't cope with it?
No, it's an incredible period of time.
Yeah,
it's an amazing period of time. Like I said, the only regret I have is I didn't go harder. But I look at my journey I had a big change in my life from 2012. And that came from trauma, that came from a divorce, and my worldview changed. And it's interesting. I was in a business networking meeting the other day, and I had to present. And so I'm there with 20 plus corporate type figures, and I presented my story in 10 minutes as best as I could. And this is from trauma that brought me to an 11/11 awakening, and these numbers took me on a journey. They took me to a gentleman called it's past my name now, but he talked about 11/11, but he also talked about the Olympic Games and the ceremony that the place that was being built, why it was being built there energetically. And then all of a sudden I'm starting to see, loose change came into my life then, and zeitgeist and various other aspects. So my life started changing. So the rabbit holes were coming fast and furious.
Right.
And interestingly as well, so I moved to Croston, where the pub is, back at that time with my daughter. And I met my partner now at that period of time. And this is another woo-woo moment, not to put anybody off my story kind of thing. But
let me tell you, my viewers generally are interested in woo-woo moments, right? Just to give you some background, my mum was a medium. I grew up around a seance table, Anne. You're not going to get more woo-woo than me, right?
Not at all.
But I'm still an investigative journalist who deals with evidence and facts, right? Because we can do that. We've been blessed with all those things as our birthright, right? So yeah, absolutely. Go on, woo-woo away, no problem.
Okay, so the 11/11 moment then is worth mentioning in terms of, because you mentioned that your mum was a medium. So a friend of mine who was a psychic medium, I was struggling financially terribly at that time. It was just me and my daughter, and I was you know, wondering what I'm going to do, how I'm going to survive. And my friend came over and he said, you need to ask your angels for help. And I remember saying, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. Now, I'm not in with the angel new age thing as such, but it did take me on that path for a little while. But however, the following day, as I was driving to my parents' house with my daughter, on the dashboard was 111111, and in the middle, the center console was 1111. And I thought, that's bizarre. Turned the car off, pulled over, turned the car off, turned it on again, and all the ones are still there. Drove to my parents' house, got into the house, sat down, got my phone, scrolling through Facebook, and this thing popped up. It said, if you see 111, your angels are listening. And all the hairs stood up. And I was like, well, everywhere I looked then for a good period of time, 1111 or 111 just kept appearing. So I then started to research it. And that's what took me on the path and I was brought into the shadows of this world then. I was shown the corruption of this world. It's all for a purpose. You know, it led me to 2020. But when we moved to Croston, as I was cleaning the house, we'd been there a couple of weeks, so it wasn't the first time I'd cleaned the kitchen, by the way. I had cleaned it before, but I found a piece of paper while I was cleaning, and it was folded. And I opened it up, and it said, don't forget to breathe. And I was like, going around to my partner, have you seen this piece of paper before? Nobody in the house had seen it before. Within weeks, my partner fell ill, terribly ill. You know, we were took on a journey where the NHS failed us so miserably. I nearly lost my partner twice. This journey that took us to the Crown in 2020 was all part of it, because we needed to see the corruption within the NHS as well. It's all part of the journey, you know. So whatever happened at the Crown later was because of all these moments. So I'm grateful.
Everything led to this moment, like literally, like it's not even a coincidence that you and I are on the same screen having this conversation right now, right? This was probably all decided a rather long time ago, maybe even before we were even born, who knows? And that is the thing, is going back to what you were saying before, is we've essentially been dumbed down since birth. We've been put into a system which farmed us like sheep, and sheep should not be farmed either. But they put us into a system, and obviously the whole school system itself was designed to stop the factories. It wasn't about creating critical thinkers, and critical thinkers are a problem, obviously, to the very fake powers that be, because we test the system and we say, no, we didn't believe that C19 narrative. That was a load of bunkum, and we're protecting people. But I do believe that there is a destiny attached to it. So I agree with you, Anne, and I lost my brother and sister during that period as well, and there are still question marks over it, and the level of pain involved regarding the NHS is just horrendous. But we are here for a reason. So bring me to Stellify. What does Stellify mean? I didn't search what Stellify means. What does it mean?
Well, Stellify is to recognize the star that you are, really, to reach that point of illumination for yourself, so you know that you are special. You know, that's the way I see it. But it was the Stellify name was inspired for me by Ian Brown, because Ian Brown was one of the few that stood up. I have a big musical background, and all my heroes were just ridiculous during that period of time. They were a complete letdown. I was so grateful that Ian Brown was one of the few that stood up.
Same.
You know, I love the man to death. So it was that was great. And so I just thought I need to represent Ian Brown in some way on what I'm doing. So Stellify was born in that way, and then I started interviewing. So Dr. Kong and then Abby Roberts came on, because I did a festival as well after the pub shut, you know. So after my breakdown, 6 months later, I managed to pick myself up so much. We did a 2-day festival in Lancashire where 500 people turned up, and we had speakers all through the weekend and great music, and it was a very high vibe with great, you know, I'm very proud of all that, you know, very proud of all that, because we've got a purpose, and we've got something. There's work to be done. Whatever's going on inside me, it's like a mission. And Stellify is about helping people realize their true potential. And I'm still trying to find mine, by the way. This is an ongoing process, but I want to help people along that journey.
I feel I've reached a stage in my life where I am now realizing myself, and I didn't get an opportunity to do that before because I was working for legacy media, and again they keep you in that little soup, and you think that you're radical in legacy media, but you're not really. You're just their kind of useful idiot that makes it look as if there is some semblance of democracy within media, and there wasn't. And so I now very much feel that I am realizing myself, and I love it, Anne, because I literally feel like I feel power in my fingertips. You know that feeling where you like feel you're alive, you feel like you're electrical current, and I do a lot of the time, right? And I'm sure that you're going through that as well, because the thing obviously about realizations is they can come really quickly. Like you were talking about how you were suddenly realizing all these corruptions and injustices. Well, it's almost like a dam that has been held back, and then that series of events led you to the point where the dam was removed, and then everything that wanted to come to your conscience, to your consciousness, was suddenly able to flood in. Was it overwhelming though?
Yeah, completely. Yeah, totally overwhelming. You know, we're battling all sorts of situations in our own personal sphere as well, aren't we? You know, and you know, regarding the C19 narrative, you know, I lost all my friends, and as most of us did, a lot of my friends and my family thought I was nuts. You know, I was battling situations where my daughter was listening to a mum who's completely opposite to me, and to the point where she was so close to having the medical intervention. She decided she was going to have it because she was told that she was, you know, they were going to Disney World, and without it, you can't travel. So it was at that point. But interestingly, speaking of woo-woo, so I started doing Reiki. I was having a Reiki attunement, and in my mind's eye, I saw this huge being protecting my daughter. He literally put his hand down, protected my daughter. And I was going downhill mentally at this point anyway, because I thought I'm going to lose my daughter, you know. And then 3 days later, Sonia, the jab bus was going to my daughter's school. So I'd accepted the fact she was going to have it, right? I was cleaning the pub, and I get a phone call from my daughter at 8:30 in the morning. I was like, what's going on? I thought, you're going to school? I can't. I've vomited. I'm not allowed in. And I'm like, thank God for that. A week later, America changed the rules. Under 18s could travel. So, you know, and it was like divine moment.
But you're recognizing it as such. And that is the thing. We've been taught to go, that's woo-woo, that's not real, that's just a coincidence. But the moment we start to recognize how the universe is lining up for us, I am in no doubt whatsoever, Ant, that once we make a decision that is for the good of society, I'm not talking about psychopaths or sociopaths, I'm talking about people who genuinely want to leave society in a better shape than we entered it, right? And that is me. I'm one of those people. It's a big order. It's a tall order, right? But that is what I want to do. That is my aim. And that's what I get up in the morning to do. And that is why I produce this show. But so the thing is that you're on that path and you're tackling these incredible topics that need to be tackled. And again, that is divine intervention as far as I'm concerned. Absolutely divine intervention. And hallelujah for that. Thank you so much, universe. Thank you so much for protecting that child. So talk to me about some of your videos, Ant, because I think that You're Not Broken, You've Been Hijacked is actually something that people should listen to as it's almost like something quite meditative that they could listen to, just because it's just, you're free flowing. Talk to people about it. Just to say, by the way, when I saw the title, I was like, that's interesting, because I used to tell my daughter, you're not spoiled, you're pampered, because spoiled suggests you're broken. I'm not having that. You're just somebody that I want to pamper, right? And it's kind of like a similar play on words that you're going through. So talk to us. I think that's it sums up so much. And I think that some of our viewers are also going through very difficult times. Spiritual awakenings are very, very difficult. You can feel incredibly isolated. There are people in the comments talking about, you know, how they've been isolated by their families and they don't no longer have any friends or anything. So talk to us about You're Not Broken, You've Been Hijacked. Brilliant title.
Well, yeah, it's. I know people like you were saying there. You know, people are struggling. Spiritual awakenings are very, very, very tough. And I mentioned that in the presentation the other day. Actually, I said, "You think that spiritual awakening is going to be fantastic? That you're all just going to find peace and go, woo, I'm here," and it's not. It's painful. It's lonely. It's a treacherous road that you're placed on, and you've got to find your way. And it's quite well. You're alone with that. But we are hijacked. We are very hijacked in terms of the conditioning that we're placed under. But my channel is not for everyone. But I recognize that as a niche because it delves into the fact that we have a dark consciousness on this realm as well. I'm looking at all aspects. I'm looking at the fact, yes, there's controllers in this realm, politically, social, whatever. But what's controlling them? And why are they so greedy? Why are they so in need of power? Why are they in so need of keeping us trodden down?
Right.
You know, so I want to try and explore all these aspects. And you see, even during C19, you can see that they use dates. You know, they would use the solstices. You know, they use rituals and etc. etc. So all this is used against us. So I've gone quite Gnostic in some aspects of my channel recently. You know, why that potentially we have a demiurge. We're living in a carbon copied kind of realm, if you like, that's taken us away from the true source creator, which is an interesting topic to dive into. And also Wetiko as well, you know, things like that, where a parasitic mind virus that's making people become narcissists. That, you know,
fascinating
Castaneda and Don Juan were talking about as the predators that are changing humanity, and we've got to be careful how we think. So we've got to return back to our true essence, which is heart, the heart mind.
It is the heart, and it is also hard because there are so many obstacles to, going back to what I said before, and that is we've literally been put into a system which was designed to take us away from our personalities. I was very fortunate with my mum, with my family. I grew up with a family of hippies. We were like the crazy family in a village in Gloucestershire, and I'm so great. At the time I felt really like isolated and quite ashamed that I was like so lonely because other children didn't really want to play with me. They called my mum a witch. But now looking back, I'm like so grateful because it's made me who I am. I literally wouldn't change anything. And that is the reality. When you look back and when you're able to get that overview, you're able to go, I know exactly why that occurred. That created that for me. And even hardships and enemies and whatever, every single thing I now know has a purpose. And I think when you've reached that stage, then you're winning because we are up against psychopaths. I mean, like true psycho and sociopaths who are running our world into the ground. They want to depopulate us, obviously, quite clearly. But I think it's really interesting. I love the topic of narcissism, by the way, because I think it's been so underexplored over the years. And obviously, it's now a very popular topic. But I have a theory, and I've talked to people, I've talked to narcissists and psychiatrists about this, and it would appear that there's an inordinate amount of narcissists who are apparently running our world. Anne, is that your kind of take on it as well? They definitely seem to be up there, don't they?
Oh, they're not like you and I. No. This is the thing. This is one of the things. When I remember when I first brought 9/11 to my parents and saying, "Look, it's not what happened," you know, and they said, "Well, but why would they do that to us, Anthony? Why would they do that?" And I like, but they're not like we are. They don't feel like we do. They're so taken away. So that's why I want to dive into the esoteric side of it. What is driving them? What's driving them? Is it just money, greed, and power? I know that's powerful in itself, but there's something more going on.
Yeah,
it's deeper. It's deeper than that.
It is deeper. Do you think, though, that it can also be simplified, that it can be broken down to good versus evil? Can it be broken down to that, do you think?
Well, it's duality. There's a duality playing out in this realm that we're in, isn't there? You know, for sure. And I do feel that there's darkness in each of us as well. You know, the shadow work that I had to do. I had to recognize the fact that I'm not 100% pure. You know, right. I'm a human being, and I can get thoughts coming in that they're not mine at the best of times. It's like, where are those thoughts coming from? You know, when I'm like planning to end the whole thing, what's that? Where's that come from? You know, because I'm here to love. I'm not here to cause chaos and whatever. But you can get chaotic moments in your own life. So these people are lost up at the top end, aren't they? Completely.
They are. I'm just looking at this comment, by the way. I don't know if you heard it. And Randy's right. When I said evil, it made a really weird noise. Did you hear it down the between me and you? It was so weird. Listen to it back if it's captured.
Yeah,
it was weird, but Randy caught it and I caught it. I was like, "Ooh, I don't want to interrupt Anne, but that's weird." That was interesting. And if I were to describe you to somebody, what would be an accurate way of describing you?
God, I don't know.
And that is exactly why I asked it. And here's why. Because what I've discovered in my life, and I would suspect that I'm somewhat older than you, and so a slightly longer road, although only a physical road. Obviously, our spiritual journeys are something else altogether. But what I've discovered is that people who tend to be quite pure of heart often have difficulty like boosting themselves up in any way, right? It's not on their agenda. Whereas we are literally led by people, and especially in the age of branding, where people can tell you what they're selling before they can tell you what they're actually doing. Right. And you can't do that. And I realized that in that instant. And I think that's quite an insight into someone's character. But I do like to give people the last say around here. So, Anne, what would you like people to take away about you?
Can I mention also that
you can mention whatever you want.
I've just finished a book that's being proofread by Gaynor actually at the moment, and it's called The Great Deception, and it's literally about what we went through in 2020. I want to get it down on paper because I don't trust the fact that our history gets completely wiped out, and as we come more into the digital age, it's easy to wipe things out. I'm fully aware of the Library of Alexandria and the fact that the book burnings do happen, but this is important for me. You know, so I've pieced something together, hopefully that people will be able to see how they did it, you know, and how maybe we can not allow it to happen again. But in terms of the final word, I want people to realize how so incredibly special they are. We are incredibly special. The powers that be want us to keep us from not realizing our true potential. We are creators, we are wonderful, and we are special. And please just feel free to come and have a look at the channel if you want, and come to the website. And yeah, no, I appreciate the time with you, Sonia. I've been very much looking forward to it, and I admire you a great deal.
Thank you.
And yeah, thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure. You reached backwards slightly as if you have your manuscript by your side, do you? Because if you do, no, I'm very observant.
I've got it here though. It's on my it's on my Word document here.
Oh right, actually. Okay, fine. No, absolutely fine. Because I wanted you to lift it up so that we could visualize it. But because now you've put it out into the ether. You've now let the universe know that this is happening, and people are already saying we actually do need documented records of what's taken place. We definitely do, because we know we're not going to get it at the COVID-19 inquiry. That is fact. So listen, Anne, absolute pleasure to have you with us this morning. Love your vibe, really brilliant, and I wish you nothing but good things. I think this is a really important journey that you're taking, everybody. This is Ant Critchley, and he's from the Stellify channel and website, and I think I've already put the links in the description. Lovely to have you with us. Thank you, Ant.
Thank you, Sonia. Take care.
Have a beautiful weekend. Lovely.
You too.
What a darling soul.
It's time to wake up with Sonia Poulton.